Members of the Congress, I have the great pleasure, the highest privilege, and the distinguished, and I might also say personal honor, of presenting to you the President of the United States.
This was the first nation in the history of the world to be founded with a purpose. The great phrases of that purpose still sound in every American heart, North and South. All men are created equal. Government by consent of the governed. Give me liberty or give me death. Well, those are not just clever words, or those are not just empty theories. In their name, Americans have fought and died for 2 centuries. And tonight, around the world, they stand there as guardians of our liberty, risking their lives. Those words are a promise to every citizen that he shall share in the dignity of man. This dignity cannot be found in a man's possessions. It cannot be found in his power or in his position. It really rests on his right to be treated as a man equal in opportunity to all others. It says that he shall share in freedom. He shall choose his leaders, educate his children, provide for his family according to his ability and his merits as a human being. To apply any other test, to deny a man his hopes because of his color or race or his religion or the place of his birth is not only to do injustice, it is to deny America and to dishonor the dead who gave their lives for American freedom. Our fathers believed that if this noble view of the rights of man was to flourish, it must be rooted in democracy. The most basic right of all was the right to choose your own leaders. The history of this country, in large measure, is the history of expansion of that right to all of our people. Many of the issues of civil rights are very complex and most difficult. But about this, there can and should be no argument. Every American citizen must have an equal right to vote. There is no reason which can excuse the denial of that right. There is no duty which weighs more heavily on us than the duty we have to ensure that right. Yet the harsh fact is that in many places in this country, men and women are kept from voting. Experience has clearly shown that the existing process of law cannot overcome systematic and ingenuous discrimination. No law that we now have on the books, and I have helped to put 3 of them there, can ensure the right to vote when local officials are determined to deny it. In such a case, our duty must be clear to all of us. The Constitution says that no person shall be kept from voting because of his race or his color. We have all sworn an oath before God to support and to defend that Constitution. We must now act in obedience to that oath. This bill will strike down restrictions to voting in all elections. Federal, state, and local. This bill will establish a simple, uniform standard which cannot be used, however ingenious the effort to flout our Constitution. It will provide for citizens to be registered by officials of the United States government. If the state officials refuse to register them. It will eliminate tedious, unnecessary lawsuits which delay the right to vote. Finally, this legislation will ensure that properly registered individuals are not prohibited from voting. To those who seek to avoid action by their national government in their home communities, who want to and who seek to maintain purely local control over elections, the answer is simple. Open your polling places to all your people. Allow men and women to register and vote, whatever the color of their skin. Extend the rights of citizenship to every citizen of this land. There is no constitutional issue here. The command of the Constitution is plain. There is no moral issue. It is wrong, deadly wrong, to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country. There is no issue of states' rights or national rights. There is only the struggle for human rights. Far from the window where I sit with the problems of our country, I recognize that from outside this chamber is the outraged conscience of a nation, the grave concern of many nations, and the harsh judgment of history on our acts. But even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too. Because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome. As a man whose roots go deeply into Southern soil, I know how agonizing racial feelings are. I know how difficult it is to reshape the attitudes and the structure of our society. But a century has passed, more than 100 years, since the Negro was freed. And he is not fully freed tonight. It was more than 100 years ago that Abraham Lincoln, a great president of another party, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But emancipation is a proclamation and not a fact. A century has passed, more than 100 years, since equality was promised. And yet the Negro is not equal. A century has passed since the day of promise, and the promise is unkept. The time of justice has now come. And I tell you that I believe sincerely that no force can hold it back. It is right in the eyes of man and God that it should come. And when it does, I think that day will brighten the lives of every American. For Negroes are not the only victims. How many white children have gone uneducated? How many white families have lived in stark poverty? How many white lives have been scarred by fear because we've wasted our energy and our substance to maintain the barriers of hatred and terror? And so I say to all of you here and to all in the nation tonight, that those who appeal to you to hold on to the past do so at the cost of denying you your future. This great, rich, restless country can offer opportunity and education and hope to all black and white, all north and south, sharecropper and city dweller. These are the enemies. Poverty, ignorance, disease, they are enemies, not our fellow man, not our neighbor. And these enemies too, poverty, disease, and ignorance, we shall overcome. Now let none of us in any section look with prideful righteousness on the troubles in another section or the problems of our neighbors. There's really no part of America where the promise of equality has been fully kept. In Buffalo as well as in Birmingham, in Philadelphia as well as Selma, Americans are struggling for the fruits of freedom. This is one nation. What happens in Selma or in Cincinnati is a matter of legitimate concern to every American. But let each of us look within our own hearts and our own communities. And let each of us put our shoulder to the wheel to root out injustice wherever it exists. And I have not the slightest doubt that good men from everywhere in this country, from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, from the Golden Gate to the harbors along the Atlantic, will rally now together in this cause to vindicate the freedom of all Americans. For at the real heart of battle for equality is a deep-seated belief in the democratic process. Equality depends not on the force of arms or tear gas, but depends upon the force of moral right, not on recourse to violence, but on respect for law and order. In Selma, as elsewhere, we seek and pray for peace. We seek order. We seek unity. But we will not accept the peace of stifled rights, or the order imposed by fear, or the unity that stifles protest. For peace cannot be purchased at the cost of liberty. The bill that I am presenting to you will be known as a civil rights bill. But in a larger sense, most of the program I am recommending is a civil rights program. Its object is to open the city of hope to all people of all races. Because all Americans just must have the right to vote. And we are going to give them that right. All Americans must have the privileges of citizenship, regardless of race. And they are going to have those privileges of citizenship, regardless of race. But I would like to caution you and remind you that to exercise these privileges takes much more than just legal right. It requires a trained mind and a healthy body. It requires a decent home and the chance to find a job and the opportunity to escape from the clutches of poverty. Of course, people cannot contribute to the nation if they are never taught to read or write. If their bodies are stunted from hunger, if their sickness goes untended, if their life is spent in hopeless poverty, just drawing a welfare check. So we want to open the gates to opportunity. But we're also going to give all our people, black and white, the help that they need to walk through those gates. My first job after college was as a teacher in Cotulla, Texas, in a small Mexican-American school. Few of them could speak English, and I couldn't speak much Spanish. My students were poor, and they often came to class without breakfast, hungry. And they knew, even in their youth, the pain of prejudice. They never seemed to know why people disliked them. But they knew it was so, because I saw it in their eyes. I often walked home late in the afternoon after the classes were finished, wishing there was more that I could do. But all I knew was to teach them the little that I knew, hoping that it might help them against the hardships that lay ahead. And somehow you never forget what poverty and hatred can do when you see its scars on the hopeful face of a young child. I never thought then, in 1928, that I would be standing here in 1965. It never even occurred to me in my fondest dreams that I might have the chance to help the sons and daughters of those students and to help people like them all over this country. But now I do have that chance. And I'll let you in on a secret. I mean to use it.
By far the biggest ovation anyone has received here in this opening session of the Democratic Convention. The first time the convention has really come alive on this first night. For Barbara Jordan, Congresswoman from Texas. The Honorable Barbara Jordan, Democrat of Houston, Texas.
distinction, what in the world am I supposed to say? I could easily spend this time praising the accomplishments of this party and attacking the Republicans, but I don't choose to do that. I could list the many problems which Americans have. I could list the problems which cause people to feel cynical, angry, frustrated. Problems which include lack of integrity in government, the feeling that the individual no longer counts, the reality of material and spiritual poverty, the feeling that the grand American experiment is failing or has failed. I could recite these problems, and then I could sit down and offer no solutions. But I don't choose to do that either. The citizens of America expect more, deserve, and they want more than a recital of problems. We are a people in a quandary about the present. We are a people in search of our future. We are a people in search of a national community. But we are attempting on a larger scale to fulfill the promise of America. We are attempting to fulfill our national purpose, to create and sustain a society in which all of us are equal. Our concept of governing is derived from our view of people. It is a concept deeply rooted in a set of beliefs firmly etched in the national conscience of all of us. Now, what are these beliefs? First, we believe in equality for all and privileges for none. This is a belief that each American, regardless of background, has equal standing in the public forum, all of us. Because we believe this idea so firmly, we are an inclusive rather than an exclusive party. Let everybody come. We believe that the people are the source of all governmental power, that the authority of the people is to be extended, not restricted. This can be accomplished only by providing each citizen with every opportunity to participate in the management of the government. They must have that. We believe that the government, which represents the authority of all the people, not just one interest group, but all the people, has an obligation to actively, underscore actively, seek to remove those obstacles which would block individual achievement, obstacles emanating from race, sex, economic condition. The government must remove them, seek to remove them. We are a party of innovation. We do not reject our traditions, but we are willing to adapt to changing circumstances. When change we must, we are willing to suffer the discomfort of change in order to achieve a better future. We have a positive vision of the future founded on the belief that the gap between the promise and reality of America can one day be finally closed. We believe that. This, my friends, is the bedrock of our concept of governing. This is a part of the reason why Americans have turned to the Democratic Party. These are the foundations upon which a national community can be built. Let all understand that these guiding principles cannot be discarded for short-term political gains. They represent what this country is all about. They are indigenous to the American idea, and these are principles which are not negotiable. Now, we must look to the future. Let us heed the voice of the people and recognize their common sense. If we do not, we not only blaspheme our political heritage, we ignore the common ties that bind all Americans. Many fear the future, many are distrustful of their leaders and believe that their voices are never heard. Many seek only to satisfy their private wants, to satisfy their private interests. But this is the great danger America faces, that we will cease to be one nation and become instead a collection of interest groups. City against suburb, region against region, individual against individual, each seeking to satisfy private wants. If that happens, who then will speak for America? Who then will speak for the common good? This is the question which must be answered in 1976. Are we to be one people, bound together by common spirit, sharing in a common endeavor, or will we become a divided nation? For all of its uncertainty, we cannot flee the future. We must not become the new Puritans and reject our society. We must address and master the future together. It can be done if we restore the belief that we share a sense of national community, that we share a common national endeavor. It can be done. There is no executive order, there is no law that can require the American people to form a national community. This we must do as individuals. And if we do it as individuals, there is no president of the United States who can veto that decision. As a first step, we must restore our belief in ourselves. We are a generous people, so why can't we be generous with each other? We need to take to heart the words spoken by Thomas Jefferson. Let us restore to social intercourse that harmony and that affection without which liberty and even life are but dreary things. A nation is formed by the willingness of each of us to share in the responsibility for upholding the common good. A government is invigorated when each one of us is willing to participate in shaping the future of this nation. Let each person do his or her part. If one citizen is unwilling to participate, all of us are going to suffer. For the American idea though it is shared by all of us, is realized in each one of us. And now, what are those of us who are elected public officials supposed to do? We call ourselves public servants. But I'll tell you this, we as public servants must set an example for the rest of the nation. It is hypocritical for the public official to admonish and exhort the people to uphold the common good if we are derelict in upholding the common good. More is required. More is required of public officials than slogans and handshakes and press releases. More is required. We must hold ourselves strictly accountable. We must provide the people with a vision of the future. If we promise as public officials, we must deliver. If we as public officials propose, we must produce. If we say to the American people, it is time for you to be sacrificial, sacrifice. If the public official says that, we must be the first to give. We must be.
Thank you. And so, my good friends, welcome to the first day of the new Texas. I want to extend a welcome also to the official representatives of 35 foreign countries and the governors of the poor Mexican border states who have joined us today. And I want to thank all of you for being with us. I hope we're going to see you often here in the Capitol, because Texas is a good place to do business. And we want to have the opportunity to do business with you. 18 months ago, I stood with many of you just a few hundred yards from here, and I announced my candidacy for governor of Texas. And if you were there, in fact, or in spirit, on that very hot June day, if you gave your time and you gave your energy to the campaign, if you held your ground, and if you continued to believe when the odds seemed long and the outcome uncertain, my gratitude to you is profound. God bless you. Today is a day of celebration. Today we marched up Congress Avenue and we said that we were reclaiming this capital for the people of Texas. We say proudly that the people of Texas are back. And that statement will be given meaning by our actions over the next 4 years. Because you see, today the historians will record that a new administration, different from any in the past of Texas, began. And 20 or 50 or 100 years from now, school children are going to open their textbooks or perhaps switch on their video text, and they're going to see a picture. They'll see us standing proudly in this bright winter noon, and looking through the eyes of a child, we will seem as distant and as ancient as the portraits of our ancestors seem to us. Those children will read that on January the 15th, 1991, a woman named Ann Willis Richards took the oath of office as the 45th governor of the state of Texas. And all of that is certain. Today the headline has really been written, but the pages that follow are blank. Tomorrow, we begin filling those pages. Writing line by line, the story will be told long after the joy of this day is forgotten. The Reverend Martin Luther King, who was born on this day, said, "We have come this far on the strength of a dream. Now our challenge is to transform that dream into reality and fill those pages of history." And we want to fill that history with the story of Texans who came into office envisioning and knowing the possibilities for an era of greatness, and that we were able to breathe life into that vision. Today we have a vision of a Texas where opportunity knows no race, no gender, no color, a glimpse of the possibilities of what can happen in government if we simply open the doors and let the people in. Now tomorrow we have to build that Texas. Today we have a vision of a Texas with clean air and land and water. A Texas where a strong economy lives in harmony with a safe environment. And tomorrow we're going to begin to build that Texas. Today we have the vision of a Texas where every child receives an education that allows them to claim the full promise of their lives. And tomorrow, we're going to build that Texas. Today, we have a vision of a Texas where every citizen is treated by the government with respect and dignity and honesty. One where consumers are protected, where business is nurtured and valued, where good jobs are plentiful, where those in need find compassion and love and help, where every decision is measured against the high standard of ethics and true commitment to the public trust. And tomorrow, you see, we've got to get about the business of building that Texas. Because you see, the people of Texas are back, and they're waiting, and they're watching us. They want to see whether their government can rise above personal interests and rancor and division and bickering and carrying on that does not represent their interests or their agenda. Years ago, John Kennedy said that life isn't fair. And life isn't fair. But government absolutely must be. And if tomorrow we begin with the understanding that government has got to stop telling people what they want and start listening to the people and hearing what the people need, we will make government mean something good in the lives of Texans. There is nothing more fundamentally important to me than the understanding that this administration exists to serve the taxpayers, because service to the people is government's bottom line. We are creating a new position in the governor's office. It is going to be a citizen's advocate who will cut through the red tape and the bureaucratic stonewalling, who will report to me on those agencies who fail to meet the test of the highest quality of service and efficiency and financial management. I am with you, Lieutenant Governor Bullock. We are going to clean this government up, and we are going to make it financially lean and responsible to the people that it serves. Just get ready for it. The oath that I've taken today is mine. But the responsibility, the trust that we have sought and been given, it belongs to all of us. And I hope that we, as we invoke the blessings of God on this adventure, we will ask in the words of that old gospel song that the Lord lift us to higher ground, and that we will be wise enough and strong enough to do what we have set out to do. Because when my time in office is finished, I want us to be able to look back together and say that we, not he, not she, but we came to this moment with a vision worthy of a great heritage, and we realized that vision in a way that is going to be worthy of our future. And so as we turn the corner on this new millennium, I want us to be able to look forward, to see a small child with a textbook thumbing through the pages, coming upon a picture of a group of people standing in a crowd on the Capitol steps, in the Capitol lawn, looking out at that child across years and changes that we cannot even begin to imagine. And I want us to read the words beneath that picture that say that on this date, in the year of our Lord 1991, a new era began in Texas. And I want us to know that what we have started here today will reach out across time to that child and do us honor. God bless you and this attempt to restore this government to the people who need it. Thank you very much.